Hello everyone and welcome back to Always Watching. Today we're discussing the new Tyler Perry film, Mea Culpa, or as Tyler likes to say, Mea Culpa, which follows a criminal defense attorney dealing with a messy family and even messier client. The film stars Kelly Rowland as Mea and Trevante Rhodes as Zyair, her client accused of a brutal murder he did not commit. The chemistry between Zyair and Mea is probably the best part of this film. And for better or worse, Tyler Perry has a knack for casting actors that work incredibly well together on screen. Unfortunately, his scripts often feel underdeveloped, or in this case, incredibly chaotic. I felt like I was watching two movies in one. The first half was very, very compelling and enjoyable because it focuses on the relationship between Zyair and Mea. The second half feels like almost like a slasher film, like a parody of Get Out. Like it just takes a turn for the absolute worst. And so starting with the first half of the film, I felt Zyair did a great job of walking that line between obviously guilty and like maybe innocent. So he is introduced to us as a thriving artist whose career is completely destroyed when he's accused of brutally killing his ex-girlfriend. He comes off as very arrogant, as a complete control freak. And right off the bat, it seems like he's very interested in Mea, or at least interested in controlling her in some way. And I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more if he was guilty and Mea found out about it and just decided to help him get off any means necessary because she's so down bad. Like their chemistry is that fire that I would have bought her like trying to help him despite his guilt. And so the build up between their relationship is so well done, and then it's just like totally wasted by the end of the film. So Zyair enters Mea's life at a very sensitive time. Her marriage is failing. Her husband does not have a job because he was fired for getting high on his own supply. On top of that, it seems like he's an alcoholic and he's dealing with a lot of issues. She doesn't have the best relationship with her husband's family. Like these people are so toxic to a point where you're like, there's no logic to any of it. It's like, why are they so bloodthirsty? And so she was incredibly susceptible to someone as charismatic and attractive as Zyair. And so at the start of their relationship, she does her best to maintain boundaries, even though he's constantly testing her to see what he can get away with. And you can feel their chemistry on screen. Zyair tries his best to seduce her any means necessary, to the point where he just tells her to her face, like, I like you. I am attracted to you. And I have to say, the acting is really phenomenal in this movie because they are delivering lines that are so jarring in the most like natural way. And so Zyair is going hard, right? Like he really, really wants Mea, and you're not really sure why at first. And so the more time Mea and Zyair spend together, the more comfortable Zyair becomes with her. Like he becomes overly comfortable. Like he's not even wearing clothes around her. By the end of it, like that scene in his apartment where he had the neighbor come over, like I had no words. And there's a lot about his personality that's introduced but not really expanded on. So it seems like he has this very insatiable appetite for women. Like there's a scene where they go to this underground club beneath his loft. And I guess the point of that is to show that, again, he's someone that wants what he wants and he'll get it no matter what. Like he's someone that really goes after what he desires. And at the moment, he desires Mea. And Mea, right from the start, she has a bad feeling about this man. The audience has a bad feeling about this man. And so he becomes so comfortable with her that it really feels like he's about to confess, right? Like, and it's hard to believe they've only been together once throughout this whole movie. Like that was probably the most disappointing aspect. And so they have a night to remember. And the only reason that Mea ends up falling for him is because she is informed by her PI that her husband is cheating on her. And so this triggers her to basically fall in Zyair's arms. And this night that they had, I think my issue with the film is that there's such tension between the two characters that I don't really buy Mea just leaving him like that or wanting to get away from him that easily. Like, she should have been hooked after that. They should have been two peas in a pod. And instead, she always has like one foot out the door. In terms of her relationship to her husband, like, the movie at the start tries to pit these two men against each other because her husband comes off as a very insecure, like, he's not doing the best. And so it made more sense to me that he would be cheating on her than not cheating on her. I mean, this man is playing video games with other women. And so shockingly, we find out that he actually wasn't cheating and that he was actually spending time with his family. And so this causes her to feel so bad that she leaves the case. And again, the way that she was able to leave Zyair so easily, I didn't really buy that given the chemistry between them. And so just before she leaves, she decides to do a little bit more research on the case. It's with Zyair's former sugar mama. And from what we can tell of Zyair, like, he's a user. Like, he seems to be the type of man that will do and say anything to get what he wants. But he's not a killer. And I have to say, like, the way that Zyair just continuously exposed himself to Mea, I don't know if he killed this girl, but I'm like, this man is definitely guilty of something. Like, I would have liked to explore his past a little bit more. Again, the best part of this movie was Zyair and Mea. And so I'm not really sure why you would take our attention away from that. And so the movie kind of starts to turn on its head when Mea comes back to his apartment and discovers his tapestry of women. And this scene is probably one of the best scenes in the movie because you're like, here we go. He's going to confess. He definitely did it. And it really gives off that vibe, right? You're like, this is the moment where she's going to commit to him. And again, I think this movie would have worked so much better as like a courtroom drama. This lawyer trying to defend this man that she's like completely obsessed with at this point. Instead, she's like, you know what? I am done with you. To my surprise, she was even willing to expose herself to make sure that he didn't do it first. And so just like that, she's out of his life. And I was just like, wait a minute, what about this trial? And so the second part of the movie, it's like it turns into a totally different film. Her life pretty much hits rock bottom when her brother-in-law basically informs her husband that she's been cheating on him. And as a reaction, I guess she decides to go on vacation. And I felt the transition was quite jarring. Like, she needed to clear her head. And like, not once was she concerned about this man that she'd been infatuated with this entire time. And so while she's on vacation, she's watching TV and she finds out that Zyair is indeed going to jail. But I guess a part of the plea deal was he didn't have to tell the prosecutor where the body was. And that was the first sign that something was up. But my girl seemed unbothered, right? I'm like, okay, maybe this will go somewhere. And so this whole part when she's on vacation is when I felt the movie was like sometimes less is more. And so in one of the most jarring edits, I think in cinema, Mea decides to go jogging at a resort. Like, I've never seen someone jogging through the beach at a resort. Like, I'm not sure why that's how. Like, I was like, why wouldn't she be on a treadmill? And so while she's running, she conveniently bumps into the woman that was supposed to be dead and basically uncovers that Zyair really is innocent and he didn't kill anyone. And rather than stay and call her PI to get to the bottom of this, she calls her brother-in-law. And Mea's character, like, the relationship between Mea and her husband's family is so toxic that I just didn't really buy that her first phone call would have been to her brother-in-law, who just looks at her like he always wants to kill her. Like, there is something bloodthirsty about this family that's just totally irrational. Rather than call her PI, she calls her brother-in-law. And I felt that, as I said earlier, like, the casting in Tyler Perry movies are always 10 out of 10. And I felt the actor who played Mea's PI was so underutilized. Like, I felt that he really should have gotten to the bottom of all of this. Like, this man was in Mexico and he didn't uncover any of this. Like, what kind of PI is this? And also, he always calls her at the worst possible time to drop the most life-changing news on her. Her PI is really, he's not in the movie often, but it's very clear that he has like some type of crush on her. And I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more, again, if they just kind of focused on if they just focused on Mea and Zyair. Like, it would have been cool if she was covering for him so much that the PI found out about it. And in an attempt to basically cover for Zyair, she like kills him. Like, he was definitely, like, this PI definitely had feelings for her. He definitely would have done anything she asked. Like, he was just like, I love you, girl. And she was like, I love you too. Like, I was just like, I really wish they used him more. But yeah, this PI was like, I'm not surprised that her first phone call was not to her raggedy PI. And so in another very jarring edit, she goes from vacation straight to their house. And I'm not sure why she needed to be at their house. Like, why wouldn't she just go back to her house? And this scene with Mea at her brother-in-law's family home really felt like a scene out of Get Out, just before he's knocked out by that crazy family. Like, they are surrounding her, ready to kill her. While she's in their home, she discovers from her raggedy PI that her mother-in-law doesn't have cancer. And I think one of my biggest frustrations was, like, the script really insists on this family dynamic, which I don't think the movie had time for. Like, the only thing the movie needed to focus on was Mea, her deteriorating relationship with her husband, and Zyair. That's it. And maybe bring in the PI for some extra drama. The rest of these people did not need to be in the movie. We did not need any of these people. And so for some reason, the mother-in-law fakes having cancer so her son can gain sympathy for voters. Like, their reasoning didn't really make any sense. And so she finds out this sort of dramatic news, and then on top of it, she conveniently discovers a painting of Charlize, which is her brother-in-law's wife, which automatically alerts her to the fact that she also was intimate with Zyair. Again, that would have been an angle that we either need to explore or just cut out of the movie completely. And so she's discovering a lot of things, and she's just kind of overwhelmed by it. The audience is overwhelmed by it. We're like, why is all this happening? And so this whole last sequence was probably one of the most chaotic Tyler Perry sequences I've seen in some time. The mother-in-law breaking her phone, to the brother-in-law handing her like a poisoned wine cup. Like, you could just see the poison in that cup. Like, there was nothing to suggest that she was about to drink it. The family, much to our surprise, exposes themselves. And again, their motivation for framing a man for murder, for doing everything that they were doing, just didn't really seem sufficient. Like, it just seemed very extra. And then there's a difference between framing someone for murder and then actually committing murder. And shout out to that mother-in-law. Like, I have never seen someone so bloodthirsty in my entire life. Like, she couldn't wait to stab somebody. And some of the dialogue in this, again, the acting is really well done because they were delivering it with a straight face. And so everything about this last part just turned into complete chaos. I don't even know where to begin. The brother-in-law drop kicking Mea while she's trying to get to the car. Like, again, everything reminded me of like Get Out, like that last part in Get Out. And so Mea finally is able to escape when her husband pulls up. And she thinks, okay, great, I'm safe, only to discover that her husband is in on it. And one of the funniest scenes is when he's calling 911 and then 911 calls him back. Mind you, his wife is a criminal defense attorney. So she was always gonna clock that something was wrong. And the way that he died, like, I don't know if y'all have seen Acrimony, when Taraji P. Henson is like flies off the boat. Like, this scene probably rivaled that. So she manages to take control of the car, and conveniently enough, her husband goes flying out of the car and you could just tell it was like a dummy going through the window. And you're just like, how did we go from 0 to 100 like that? The movie ends quite abruptly with Zyair being released from prison. About Zyair, I'm like, I wish we explored your character more. And the movie ends with Mea walking away, wearing shades. Like, I'm not sure why she was hiding or why she was concealed like that. Like, but I guess the point was that she was about to walk away from both. And that's how the movie ends. And so I have a lot of thoughts about this. I have a lot of feelings when it comes to Tyler Perry movies. I think the last Tyler Perry movie that I watched was A Fall from Grace. And I quite enjoyed A Fall from Grace. I think my issue with this film was that, again, it felt like two different movies. And when it comes to Tyler Perry movies, like, you will be entertained. And the reason for that is you know exactly what you're gonna get. Like, in a lot of ways, he almost reminds me of like Brian De Palma, where he kind of makes these films that are not really for everyone, but his audience knows exactly what they're gonna get. Like, there's a consistency there. Tyler Perry, I have to respect his consistency. I do think that he comes up with really great ideas, but sometimes less is a lot more, especially when he has access to such caliber actors. Like, just focus on the chemistry. Like, if the whole movie had just been Mea and Zyair and just this sort of tension, I would have loved it. I would have been like 10 out of 10, give us more. Instead, it forced this raggedy family down our throat. And everything about these people, like, they were just awful from the beginning, right? Like, and they were awful to a point where it was almost like a caricature. You're like, this can't be real. And so when it comes to Tyler Perry movies, like, again, you know, I think we're past the point of bashing them just to bash them. Like, either he's your cup of tea or he isn't. I mean, it always feels like you're watching a first draft of a script, like not really a final draft. And I'm not sure why they rush these scripts out like this. And I'm not sure why, again, you have so many things going on. Maybe I'm being a bit too generous when I say this, but I think when you're a writer and a director, you maybe don't trust other people to get your vision, because the reason these movies feel like a first draft is because they are a first draft. And I think there's a difference between changing something and refining it. And I'm not sure why Tyler Perry hasn't found the right team to help him refine his work. Maybe he just doesn't trust it. Because at this point, like, I do believe that he writes everything, you know, he tries to do everything, but the problem is quantity over quality never ends well. If you were entertained by A Fall from Grace, if you were entertained by Acrimony, this is of the same caliber. Like, you will be entertained. I think this had the potential to be one of his best movies if he just kind of focused on his main characters. But overall, I don't know what to say. I go in with a certain set of expectations when it comes to this film, and usually those expectations are met. So you guys let me know what you think, and until next time.